Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I, of course, am your host, DBJ, and all of you who take part in the show live 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on this channel, on YouTube and Twitch, are the co hosts of the show. Thank you very much for being here. Those of you who have any interest in Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, today is your day. Today is Tuesday, so we're again delving into Level Up Advanced 5th Edition from ENWorld, a um, product producer, publisher, um, blog entity that's been around for over 25 years, and they also give out the Ennies. But today we are going to take a look at Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. It is rewritten from the bottom up. Um, Fifth edition option for those who still want to play their fifth edition game, something that's familiar to them, but maybe they don't want to support Wizards of the Coast and or Dungeons and Dragons or Hasbro, and so here's your option. We are going to take a look at uh, the two new classes, not new classes. Well, we'll see. We're going to take a look at the Herald, and the Herald replaces the Paladin from uh, fifth edition, and it was a split between changing the name Paladin, which is has a specific cultural standard to it, and the Herald, which can be applied to maybe more world cultures and such. Now, I was on the full disclosure. I was on the design team as a consultant and writer for the Trials and Treasures book. Some consider that to be like the Dungeon Master's book. Uh, for us, it is, and it's also the exploration book. So we're going to take a look at the beginnings, the design elements of the Herald, and go from there. So again, the Herald's like the Paladin, and you'll see here, um, uh, like all of the classes, the class changes were iterative, so you're not going to see a big giant change, maybe except in this class. You're going to see a lot of small changes when it comes to how to play these classes and how they are designed. The biggest thing for this class is you will see that instead of using spell slots to smite monsters, it is a separate class feature, much like uh, druids have a class feature which is a wild shape, or clerics have a class feature which is channel divinity. Instead of using spell slots, it is separate unto itself. Now we have our table here for the Herald, and each class has a way to um, basically customize the character class. Everything from lesson. This one is called lessons known on this table on the left side, and on your first two levels you don't have any lessons, but as your character progression goes to third level and beyond, you will see that there are a number of lessons. You beginning at third level, you would gain one lesson, and it goes up from there. Fifth level, uh, fifth, seventh, ninth, 11th, 14th, and then 19th level, and you would gain these lessons. And these lessons are like small, they're not feats, but they're like small little ways to customize the character so that your herald is different than any others. We also have one next to that, to the right of that, we have the smite damage. And again, smite is a specific divine smite is a specific class feature that is exists outside of the spell function. And we have martial maneuvers. Maneuvers known beginning at second level, you get two, and then it goes all the way up to 8 maneuvers known at 19th level. If you followed along or you want to watch the video about fighters, they have martial maneuvers, and heralds have martial maneuvers as well. Heralds do not Fighters, of course, have access to all the martial maneuvers, whereas the Herald has specific ones. We'll get into that. And of course, next to martial maneuvers, maneuvers known as maneuver degree, and that is the highest at that whatever level you gain them at second level, and then seventh, so on. You can perform higher level martial maneuvers, and you cap out at uh, fourth degree maneuvers at 19th level. So not much has changed in terms of like hit points and modifiers to that with your con bonus. Of course, proficiencies remain just about the same. Light, medium, and heavy armor and shield, simple and martial weapons, saving throws with wisdom and charisma, and a bunch of skills. So, of course, they still have divine sense, and we know many iterative through iterative changes that being able to detect good and evil has been changed to divine sense, and divine sense, of course, is no different. Um, you can choose one of the following sets of enemies for divine sense. It's celestials and fiends, fey and elementals, or aberrations and undead. And so you choose one, almost like a a a holy knight version of the ranger, right? It's like what can you sense? And you can always sense when a creature of one of your chosen types is within 30 feet of you, but cannot determine their number, type, or location. As a bonus action, you can briefly enhance your senses to learn the location, number, and type of creatures of your chosen types within 30 feet of you. When you do so, creatures of those types that are within range make a wisdom saving throw against your spell DC with advantage if the creature's CR is higher than your Herald level. On a failed save, you also learn the creature's identity. Within the same radius, you also detect any locations that have been consecrated or desecrated, as with the Hallow spell. You can activate this feature a number of times equal to your charisma modifier and regain spent uses upon finishing a long rest. Also, upon finishing a long rest, you may also swap your chosen set of creature types for another. So this part, like being able to swap out, like say celestials and fiends for maybe aberrations and undead, it's so that you don't get into the issue, which is a ranger issue, where if you pick something specific and the game master or narrator in this sense doesn't put that in the game, then you're not shackled into this thing where great, I've got this great ability, but then I can't use it. So bards are the same way, where they're able to swap out their type of artistic expression. Same thing goes here. Like upon finishing a long rest, you can swap your chosen type. Now, once you do that, it requires a long rest to change it. So there is a little bit of a limitation on that. To the into the chat and see what you guys would say. Okay. Um, Going down, of course, we have Herald spells, and we have a separate table for spell slots, cantrips, first level spells, etc., etc. Capping out at 20th level with 4 cantrips, a number of spells all the way up to 5th level. Um, the great thing, great thing is that Smite has nothing to do with the spell capabilities, which is awesome. Um, Heralds still have lay on hands, they still have spell casting, but let's get over to Divine Smite, which is above my head here. Starting at second level, let's put this here. Starting at second level, whenever you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can choose to deliver a Divine Smite that deals an additional 1d8 radiant damage. The amount of extra damage increases as you gain levels in this class, as shown in the Smite damage column of the Herald table. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and regain spent uses upon finishing a long rest. Now, it doesn't stop there, but you gain this ability at second level. Of course, we have combat maneuvers, just like the fighter. At second level, you gain the ability to use combat maneuvers. You gain proficiency in 2 combat traditions from the following list: Sanguine Knot, Spirited Steed, or Tempered Iron. You learn 2 maneuvers of your choice from traditions you are proficient with. So that's it. And of course, at third level, you pick your archetype, your Herald archetype. Again, the Herald replacing the Paladin. Mm-mm. They still have Channel Divinity, and at third level. Now, as your as the Herald gains levels, your you can your empowered smite starts to allow you to customize, once again, customize your character. So for example, on at fourth level, you're able to manipulate magic to add extra power to your smites. Whenever you would use your divine smite feature, you can choose one of the following effects. Once you have used this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. Alternatively, you can empower a smite by expending a spell slot of first level or higher. And again, this is where the balance was to make this a separate feature than the spells, and only being able to use them with spell abilities. Instead, what you can do is you gain empowered smite, and then of course as you gain levels, like with greater empowered smite, so on and so forth, you can start to burn some spell levels if you want to, but it's not required to use this ability. So anyway, some empowerments require your target to make a saving throw to resist some of the empowerment's effects. The DC for these saving throws is the same as your Herald spell DC. So there's igniting smite. For example, your smite instead deals fire damage, and the target must make a Constitution saving throw at the start of each of his turns or take 1d6 fire damage. You have marking smite. Your smite causes the target to shed bright light for 5 feet and dim light for an additional 5 feet. And repelling smite. Your smite deals force damage, and the target must make a strength saving throw or be pushed back 10 feet and knocked prone. See if you guys have anything to say. Here we go. We have greater empowered smite. And again, like all the other class features, when you gain certain levels, you gain certain abilities, there's it's not power creep in that you're getting things stacked on top of each other, but you do have very many options. So, Heraldic Sermon, at fifth level, your oath has so inspired you that your words seem to imbue with magic, to be imbued with magic when you talk about it. Choose one of the following features. So, this is a heraldic sermon, and you get to choose one of these features, either being devout, such as you gain proficiency in a persuasion skill. You have advantage when using this skill to influence others by discussing your oath or deity. There is evangelism, another choice. You gain proficiency in a performance skill. You have advantage when using this skill to convert others through preaching about your oath or deity. You have Fearmonger. You gain proficiency in the intimidation skill. You have an advantage when using this skill and your faith to intimidate others and witnesses with opposing views and make obvious efforts to avoid you. And usually there's 3 options. We have Sacred Aura at 6th level, it being an aura of courage, aura of resistance, or aura of willpower. And so basically, Sacred Aura is similar to the Paladin, right? Each aura has a radius. At 6th level, you're able to manifest an aura that aids you and your allies. Each aura has a radius of 15 feet, is centered on you, and you must be conscious for you and your allies to benefit from it. You can have only one of the following auras active at a time, and can change which aura is active whenever you finish a long rest. And at 18th level, the range of all auras increases to 30 feet. And so you can have an aura of courage, where you and your allies within range cannot be frightened. An aura of resistance, you and your allies within range of your aura gain a bonus on saving throws equal to your charisma modifier. Or an aura of willpower, you and your allies within range cannot be charmed. We go down to greater smite. So to the very left here, you screen, we had empowered smite at 4th level. At 8th level, with a greater empowered smite, you're able to do other functions. There's blinding smite. Target makes a con save. On a failure, it's blinded for 1 minute. Disorienting smite. Your smite instead deals psychic damage, and the target makes a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, it has disadvantage on attack rolls for 1 minute. Or taunting smite. The target makes a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, it takes an additional 1d6 radiant excuse me, radiant damage when attacking a creature other than you and cannot make opportunity attacks against anyone but you. And again, we go on. Inspiring devotion at ninth level, you get three choices, such as lend faith, reveal heresy, or truth of conviction. And then an improved sacred aura with other auras, such as the aura of healing or an aura of overcoming or aura of smiting, which is kind of cool. Whenever aura of smiting, whenever an ally within your aura scores a critical hit with a weapon attack, they deal additional radiant damage equal to half your herald level. And then lastly, again, this is at the end of all the classes. There's some kind of sometimes they're called knacks or lessons or um, training or something like that. And these are abilities that you pick that help to customize the character. And you may recognize some of these are abilities that were embedded in the character class and then were taken apart and kind of separated so that there's a bit more choice. Again, this isn't about like power creep, it's more about choice. Let's take a look at the chat here. Hey guys. Z, what's going on? Zamar says, I prefer the rename as it can be taken in a far less religious light. Smite, though, feels too religious for something that people might try and remove from the divine. Yeah, I personally, I agree with it. I was one that was dissented against it. Anyways, Zamar goes on and continues, says, this is also why in my world it's night unless you are religiously aligned, and it's fury if you are not aligned to a god, but you must serve a deity or a lord to be a knight or paladin. I come across this a little bit differently because if I feel, and I know there's a problem in terms of calling them like oath keepers or something like that because of a um, uh, current society, especially here in the states. But I feel like there's it's still very connected to like a Eurocentricity. Heavy armored mount, usually a horse or something, and it kind of tends not to like relate itself to other cultures and things. Like, what if you're a tribal person and you're playing a herald? Now you have to undo the cultural baggage to then redo something. The same issue with bard and monk, which is why it was changed to adept. Yeah, and the smite part of it, I like the idea of fury. Although maybe somebody might go like, maybe my character doesn't get upset, and maybe fury kind of is something different. But yeah, I think you're always gonna there's always gonna be have to be a give and take, right? Because what happens is the fighter doesn't have any cultural attachment, but then it's the least defined character class, whereas all the other character classes tend to be far more defined in what they do and what they can't do. So yeah, there's always a give and take. So, and am I being a little bit obnoxious about it? Sure. So anyway, divine lessons. When you gain access to a new divine lesson, choose one of the following. And again, there's a number of them, maybe 10 to 15 of them, such as bestow understanding, divine health, divine vision, do without, exemplary, etc., etc. For example, under divine health, you are immune to disease and have an advantage on saving throws made to resist the poisoned condition. Or do without, your divine connection and years of training combine to allow you to survive without supply for a number of days equal to your charisma modifier without suffering any adverse effects. Um, you can go without food and water, things like that. Glorious purpose. When you agree to undertake a quest that specifically fulfills the tenets of your herald archetype, you gain proficiency with a skill that will be crucial in completing that quest. The skill is chosen by the narrator. If you are already proficient with the skill, you gain an expertise die instead. Again, expertise die starts at D4, and they step up where they chain up and down. from D4 to D6, D8, D10, etc. The benefits of this divine lesson do not change until the quest has been completed. And so, glorious purpose might be something like maybe you need, maybe your divine purpose is to need the stealth skill because you're going into the ravaged monstrous lands or something like that. Or maybe you gain the, what's another good skill? A sleight of hand skill, or I don't know. It could be anything, but it's also these are choosable. I believe it's beginning at second level. But again, you can customize your character as your character starts to gain levels. And if you are an individual who leaves your character as an open book, you could very much acquire these as story elements going forward. And you working with your narrator could say, you know what, this actually would fit with your character, uh, such as being a naturalist, right? Maybe you're on a going into uncharted lands with the rest of the group, and of course you're a heavily armored knighted individual or something like that, but you want to your character as you gain in levels you want to add to the group in terms of exploration. So for the naturalist, you can choose one type of terrain such as arctic, coast, desert, forest, grassland, mountain, subterranean, or swamp. You gain an expertise die on nature and survival checks made in this terrain. In addition, once each week, when you have run out of supply, you can spend 8 hours in the wilderness to find 1d4 plus 2 supply. And for those who don't know, supply and haven is very important. Exploration is very important in level up fifth edition, and y- you really need to burn supply and have a haven to recover. Otherwise, you're going to start gaining fatigue, which is like, which is a dead, not deadlier, but more common version of exhaustion. So, yep, these are things. And then, of course, we have the Herald archetypes: the Green Knight, the Holy Champion, and it tells you about their like channel divinity abilities. Like for example, under the Green Knight, there's certain tenets. Not much changes over here though. We have at third level, when you choose this archetype, you gain the following two channel divinity options: Blessing of Nature. You can use an action and touch a plant to be recognized by nature as one of its protectors for the next hour. For the duration, you gain advantage on persuasion checks made to influence druids and beasts. Um, Alternatively, you can end the blessing early to gain advantage on a survival check made to find supply or a haven in the wilderness. And then the second ability is Rely on Nature. When you fail a nature or survival check, you can use your reaction to succeed instead. And so there you go. You got the Forest Knight. We've got the Holy Champion. The Holy Champion's channel divinity. It says at third level, when you choose this archetype, you learn how to reach into the river of divine power that cycles between the lower planes and the upper planes, able to employ it to astounding effect. You gain the following two channel divinity options: either negative energy flood or positive energy flood. That's a little bit of an old school throwback terminology there: negative energy and positive energy instead of like necrotic and radiant. But anyway, as for negative energy flood, as an action, you can use your channel divinity to unleash a flood of negative energy on your foes. Hostile creatures within 30 feet of you make a constitution saving throw. On a failed save, a hostile creature takes 2d8 necrotic damage and is pushed back 5 feet, or on a success, it takes half damage and is not pushed back. And positive energy flood, you can send out a flood of positive energy to heal your allies. Friendly creatures, including yourself within 30 feet, regain hit points equal to your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier. So, anyway, we've got the Green Knight, the Holy Champion, and the Inquisitor. And we've got the tenants down there and the Channel Divinity ability. Um, Third level, you gain the following two channel divinity options, such as compelling inquiry. When questioning a creature with which you share a language, you can use your channel divinity to compel it to speak the truth. The creature makes a constitution saving throw or finds itself unable to be dishonest for 1 minute. Regardless of whether it succeeds or fails, you know the outcome of the saving throw. And then in I'm going to mispronounce this. Inquisitorial challenge. You can use a bonus action and your channel divinity to issue a challenge of combat to one creature you can see within 30 feet. The creature makes a wisdom saving throw or is unable to move more than 30 feet away from you and has disadvantage on attacks against creatures other than you for 1 minute. So let's get into the chat here. Actually, let me move down because we've got the spell list. The spell lists, if your character class can cast spells, is at the very end of the character class, so you don't have to page flip. I mean, you may have to get details of the spells, but if you're just picking spells, they're already there. All right, we're going to get into the Marshal second. Let's get into what you guys have to say. Mm-mm-mm. Zamar says, I will argue that the concept of a knight is mostly universal. Just about every type of ruler has a right hand man there to do the fighting, as well as one there to do the advising. Difference being more in the ways that they do it and less in the purpose of their being. Yes, but some people from around the world will argue that the term knight doesn't exist in their culture, even though I think the purpose, like the way you describe it, absolutely does exist, right? The right hand man, the extreme warrior that is, fueled by ancestors or divine spirits or something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree, but some would say, yeah, but we don't have knights in our culture. Zamar says, in some cases, it's a group of people making you one of many, and in others, you are the sole person, making it more appropriate for higher level play. But yeah, semantics. Yeah, and again, semantics. I think people just get upset when it's just like, I don't know why you need to change it. I'm going, well, because it doesn't have to do with you, right? It's like, if I wanted to make let's see, what's the it's on the top of my tip of my tongue. It's in India. They ride on horseback. I can't think of it. Anyway, let's get into the Marshal. Okay, so new class, the Marshal in Level Up 5th Edition. Marshal is a non-spell casting, well, I hate to say it again, non-spell casting martial class. And I don't mean martial as in Marsh, but Marti. Like in terms of martial ability. They are whoa. They are essentially what many people call the battle master. The marshal is the combat version of the bard, and is a non magical version of this kind of class. And so, if you're someone who wants to play like a battle master and boost and buff your allies and detract from your enemies, this is the battlefield manipulator, the marshal. So again, we have this large table over on the right side. We have various features, and you'll notice there's something here called commanding presence. And commanding presence is essentially your ability to influence your allies and negatively affect your enemies. And begins at 10 feet at first level, and it starts to move up. 20 feet at fifth level, you got 30 feet at 10th level, and 45 feet at 15th, and maxes out at 60 feet at 20th level. Next to that, you have followers, and this is a little bit of a throwback to the OSR, the original, the old school Renaissance gaming, where you had like retainers, followers, henchmen, hirelings. Oh, there's another one in there too. Anyway, beginning at fifth level and above, you gain followers, and so at fifth level you gain one follower. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. At fifth level you gain one follower. 10th level you have two. You gain an additional one at 15th level, and you gain four followers when you get to 20th level. This was basically in place because the idea of stopping progression at around between ninth and 12th level has disappeared out of Dungeons and Dragons. There used to be between like ninth and 12th level, you'd gain what we called name level, and your character would kind of semi-retire, and you'd open up like a fort or some kind of stronghold or something like that, which we do have stronghold rules in level up 5th edition. But anyway, of course, we have combat maneuvers known because you are a martial class. You know, it's in the name. So you begin having getting gaining two martial maneuvers at 2nd level, and you go all the way up to 20th level where you have cap out at 11 martial maneuvers. Of course, you start at 1st degree and go all the way up to 5th degree maneuvers, and then you have a number of lessons known. And lessons known, again, is something to customize the character. So I'll get back into the chat in just a minute. But basically, the martial proficient with light, medium, heavy armor and shields, simple weapons and martial weapons. No tool proficiencies, but you do have some skills, and it is a wisdom and charisma saving throw character. For equipment, you either get a skirmisher's kit with 6 javelins, a longsword, a hauberk, light shield, explorer's pack, or a soldier's set, including a battle axe, scimitar, 2 spears, longbow and quiver with 20 arrows, padded leather, and dungeoneer's pack. And the soldier's set is, you can tell, is far more mobile. Uh, having padded leather armor. But of course, you've got 2 spears, a longbow, battle axe, a scimitar. You get a lot more to use. Mm, 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 mm. Rallying surge. As the character, as the Marshall progresses in levels, not only does your aura of command start to widen, but you gain special abilities within that aura to enhance your allies. So basically, like at 1st level, you have Rallying Surge. You can use a bonus action to choose an ally within 30 feet of you. If the target can hear or see you, it regains hit points equal to 1d8 plus your martial level. Once you use this feature, you must finish a long rest before you can use it again. This is a non-magical healing effect. So it's basically like your rallying surge is basically like, get up, soldier, and they regain hit points. And while I understand our description of hit points is very vague in Dungeons and Dragons, and it kind of vacillates back and forth because it kind of does fit and doesn't fit because it's not really harmful. But so this is a way to like um poke at hit points with a little bit of a pin when it comes to like how do you heal if it's not physical damage and things. Yeah. Yeah. Zamar says, thank you for reminding me to nerf that one bard spell to only working on non-beast ooze plants or aberrations construct creatures. I don't remember. Okay, I'm glad I helped you out. I don't know what I did. Zamar brings up retainers, hirelings, henchmen, and companions, men at arms in a military sense. Absolutely, absolutely. And the let, let's not confuse this part of it. The herald, you'll see as we move on, the herald is not necessarily. I'm sorry. Wow, the herald. The marshal is not necessarily a battlefield like operator because you'll see that this character might be a little devious. Um, so anyway, we do have maneuvers. We have lessons of war. You'll see there's a little bit of Robin Hood in here with this character. You of course at 3rd level you pick a martial archetype. Like all the other character classes, by 3rd level, you get to pick your archetype. You can mark a foe. There's lessons of war column because he's learned some lessons. This is a from separate but similar to the Herald that we just went through. There are lessons that you can learn, and again, these are little things that you get to modify your character. Now, um, ASI's ability and score improvements, just like usual. You'll see them, and they're in there. At 5th level, you have combat directives, and as this starts to go on, you're going to see that you're able to customize your character. So here we get to. I want to show you call to arms. So call to arms, beginning at 6th level, when you roll initiative, you and each creature friendly to you that are within range of your commanding presence gain an expertise die to their initiative check. Additionally, when you roll for initiative, you can switch your result with that of an ally you can see. So it's kind of cool. So even if you Not only do you get an expertise die, and again, expertise die is step dice or chain dice, D4, D6, D8. If you get to add that to your initiative modifier, which is kind of cool. Again, you have to be within range to use that. But we start getting into, sorry, I know I'm moving shit up and down. Sorry about that. You're going to get into being able to manipulate your character to become the kind of marshal you want to be. Remember earlier in some of the videos where I said that customizing your character, we wanted to have like a combat focused option, a social focused option if your game is far more like political maybe or interactive, and an explorative. And this is where we get into it, where we get into being able to customize your character to manipulate them to what you want. So I know I'm moving it again. For martial renown at sixth level, tales of your deeds take root in the hearts of people. As a leader, you are more famous than most adventurers. Add half your proficiency bonus to your prestige rating. In addition, your reputation strongly affects how you are perceived, and when it becomes known that you are in a settlement, people treat you accordingly. At the narrator's discretion, there may be settlements, such as an enemy's war camp, where you cannot utilize this feature. Choose one of the following. And you could pick famous, infamous, or maverick. And of course, famous is like when you arrive in a settlement after you reveal who you are. After you reveal who you are, local authority figures seek you out to make introductions and invite you to share a meal or drink. There's infamous when you arrive at a settlement after you reveal who you are. Common folk hurry to get out of your way, and when you corner a commoner to ask about something local, they rapidly tell you whatever details they think you might want to know. And yeah, famous you get an expertise die on persuasion, but infamous you gain an expertise die on intimidation checks. And then lastly, there's the maverick. Um, when in a settlement after you reveal who you are, the local watch starts keeping an eye on you. Heads of illegal organizations may introduce themselves to you if they have goals well suited to your talents. Additionally, guards expect you're up to no good, so are quick to leave their post to follow you. And so basically, like you, if you want to play an honorable marshal, sure, okay, maybe you're a little bit brutal, so you're infamous, or maybe you're like a maverick, illegal. Maybe you're fighting against your marshal is a like some kind of uh, insurgent or rebellious leader or something like that. And this goes on and on. Um, Expanding directives, rouse the troops. Are a lot of these abilities, do they seem spell like sometimes? Sure. But again, this is a non magical character. So some of the abilities might seem like a step lower than a spell effect, but they're not really counterable because they aren't spell functions. If if that makes a little bit of sense. Um, I'll go with a commanding demeanor at 12th level, and then I'll get back to what you guys have to say. Um, Commanding demeanor, starting at 12th level, the lessons you've learned on the battlefield become useful tools beyond the realm of combat. You can either create calm, you can become create. You're either calm, resolute, or responsive, and this goes on and on. You can create a greater stronghold, um, et cetera, et cetera. Impressive reputation. You're either known as a hero, iconoclast, or slaughterer. And then at 20th level, you gain either commander's expertise, feedback loop, or rapid deployment. It's kind of cool. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Let me go back up to gaining allies. Oh, or followers. I'm sorry, it's called followers. At fifth level, you gain one inexperienced follower. At 10th level, 15th, and 20th level, you gain an additional follower, or one of your followers becomes more experienced. When one of your followers dies, after 1 month, you receive word that their replacement is ready to join you. And if you go to the Monstrous Menagerie, they have stats for like NPCs and things like that follow you around. And then we get to lessons of war. Let me see what you guys have to say. Mm-mm. Samar says, I like that. It's a bonus to the consequence. People of like mind seem to notice you and want to rope you into their causes. Yeah, it's very is it storyteller, narrator focused? That thing where you're like, are you famous or infamous or a maverick or something, yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. And of course, the fun part of that is maybe the player character doesn't have a choice. Like how I would play that, let me go back up here. So, how I would play this I know my face is going to cover up the Maverick, but sorry about that. So, under martial renown, you know, it says, where you cannot utilize, choose one of the following. And it says at the narrator's discretion, there may be settlements such as an enemy's war camp where you cannot utilize this feature. I would default to, if you can't use it, you gain another aspect of this, but it's not by your choice, right? So you may be famous in the elven lands, but you might be infamous in the goblinoid lands, right? Like that way you don't have to nerf the character any bit. And also, I if I was a player character, I would love that I don't know what my character's own reputation gains for me and also penalizes me a little bit. Like under Maverick, it's like, yeah, people who are shady dealers may come to you with like missions or maybe even information or negotiation tactics or exchanges and things like of places to stay and whatnot. But then the guards might follow you around a bit. So, and you may think you're famous, but really you're a maverick in that location. So, um, have is there some effort to go out of the way to design the character classes so there's a little bit of a story element into it? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So, under lessons of war, there are a couple of lessons that you can pick as your character gains level. Again, these are non-level specified. You pick them as you gain levels to customize your character. So, for example, you can gain exacting at maybe fifth level, but then another character may pick exacting at like 12th level or something like that. What's a good one? Keep walking. Here's one. You can motivate your allies to keep going even when they are tired and hungry. Once, between long rests, you can choose a number of allies equal to twice your proficiency bonus who can hear or understand you. Each ally can travel an additional hour before needing to make a constitution saving throw for a forced march. And again, they have to hear you. Basically, you're like, keep moving. Or you might say, listen, you could be persuasive, right? You don't have to be mean about it. You can say, remember our goals. We've got to keep moving. Of course, there's team tactics, teamwork, rewarding repute, things like that. A lay of the land. Here's another one that is very exploration focused. Knowledge of the terrain can be the difference between victory and defeat. By spending 10 minutes observing the area in a 2-mile radius, you can spend 2 exertion points. And exertion points goes back to martial maneuvers. You can spend 2 exertion points to pick out where there are choke points, large swaths of cover, watercourses, vegetations that can offer concealment, ridge lines, and so on. You gain an expertise die on engineering and survival checks made within the area, and on checks made to prepare an ambush or realize you are being ambushed. And again, knowing the lay of the land, very very good ability to basically say, hey, you know what, we're going into an unknown location. Let me just take a look and see what's going on here, and that way you don't get you can avoid being ambushed and surprised, and it's very much narrative, right? Team tactics, when using team tactics, when one or oops, wow, when more than one creature takes the help action to aid an ally, making an ability check for each additional creature helping, the check is made with a +1 bonus. So this allows you to kind of break the help action. In 5th edition, the help action basically is a person needs help and one person can help. Multiple people, it doesn't really increase from there. It's just more narrative focused. This one allows that, hey, we've got 3 more people helping, you gain an additional +1 bonus. Um, and this can really help, especially if you have followers. If you're a marshal, you have followers, you can order your followers to help other characters doing a thing. So that works as well. There's also teamwork. You can pick teamwork as one of your lessons of war. When you are involved in a group check, all members of the check gain an expertise die. That's kind of cool. Once you use this feature, you cannot do so until you finish a long rest. And expertise die again, step dice or chain dice. Let's get back to the chat, and then we'll talk about the martial, the martial archetypes. Mm-mm. Michael Marin says, "I'd like to see a background utility to a martial, like this book prescribes, so strong that you could justify bringing them along on an adventure even without combat." Oh, so here's the deal. Like, it doesn't specify who or what the follower is. So you could make, well, let me continue to read what you're saying. Sorry. Mike says, "I'd like to see a background utility to a marshal, like this book prescribes, so strong that you can justify bringing them along on an adventure even without combat, i.e., the martial equivalent of quote." We brought the nerdy wizard along because he speaks Elvish and knows books. Yeah. Um, Listen, there isn't a description as to who the follower is, so you could bring along like a hedge wizard or a sage or a cook even. It also, let's be honest, how many times have like uh we've had adventures where everyone's like, we're all on horseback and we've got carts and wagons, and then all of a sudden you've got to go down deep in the dungeon, and it's like, do we leave everything up top side? Well, your follower can kind of watch out for that, right? Also, followers don't need to be nameless, unknownable individuals. They could be family and friends, especially if you have a noble background. It fits, a marshal fits perfectly into that. Again, that's why I brought up the idea of Robin Hood. Robin Hood as a marshal is, he's marshaling the people that don't want to follow the king, and he's living in the woods. And you know, what's the Robin Hood and John, uh, Friar Tuck or whatever the character was, that's like, um, I'm the religious person that keeps everybody's spirits up high, and I make a couple of jokes or something like that, right? Um, that's basically what that is. So I would absolutely narratively customize the followers. Maybe a follower becomes is one of the NPCs in the group during the adventure. The the elven warrior spares the life of the orc chieftain, and the orc chieftain's like, I'm going along with you guys. Zamar says, "Ooh, I would use it. While the enemy might not recognize you, someone who wants to rebel against that enemy might, such as us as a slave in a bandit's camp with aspirations to replace said bandit." Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Talking about being famous, infamous, or maverick, and the reputation of your character. Um, what a great way to just manipulate. Now, mind you, that's not what the rules say. Let's be honest. That's me doing that, but I think the option to do that would be awesome. Yeah, the slave that you release in the bandit camp is like, dude, listen, I know a way out of here. Just release me. you know. Oh man. Mike Marin says, "I think the team tactics benefit alone is useful enough. Very Bard like. I can imagine an old, retired, and feeble level 10 marshal that can't fight but has the skills and expertise to aid." Yeah, 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 yeah. Also, the marshals. Let's remember the marshal's ability is wisdom and charisma. It's not strength and dex. So you could make like an old grizzled warrior who doesn't have a very high strength and doesn't have a high dex and still play this character. Sure, do you want some martial ability? I mean, wow, I'm using the word martial. Do you want some combat abilities? Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. But you don't have to play this character as a frontline warrior. You could play them as a backline um tactician, the proverbial, they're the one in the biggest tent with the maps out and the super cool figurines carved on top, moving things around without being on the front lines. This is technically the bard with heavy armor and a sword. um so here we have the martial archetypes. We have the gambling general. I like this. Go big or go home. That saying may seem incredibly risky under circumstances that could determine the fates of entire nations, yet gambler marshals thrive on balancing risk and reward to make the impossible possible. At times, the luck those These marshals have bordered on being miraculous, though many say their success is a matter of skill, not talent. So there's the gambling general, and then there's the, again, third level. You pick these as your archetype. Your daring commander. At third level, select this archetype, choose one of the following. You can either have daring assault, daring charge, or defensive maneuvers. Um, Desperate avoidance, frantic avoidance, hold the line, stand firm, stand strong. Basically, this is a classic general. Okay. Then we have the swift strategist. Not all marshals command fully armored, heavily armed troops, yet they produce as much result as any disciplined army. Swift strategists know when to strike hard, fast, and be gone before the enemy realizes what hit them. Their presence may be rare on the battlefield, but that is simply because the entire war is the perfect war zone. And so this is more of a mobile, small group tactic kind of a marshal. And then there's abilities like fast feet, fast retreat, skirmisher, nimble troops, um, nimble troops. At seventh level, choose either acrobatics or athletics. Creatures within range of your commanding presence add their charisma modifier. Add your charisma modifier to checks using the chosen skill. Get you scrambling over that all that debris and landscaping and stuff. And then lastly, we have the talented tactician. The most brilliant of a tactician marshals are those who can sit far away from the front lines and yet picture every move their enemy might take. For each move, they plan an appropriate response to drive their foe into desperation and surrender without ever firing a shot or lifting a sword. And then, so that's the third one. Now you've got things like student of war, operations leader, superior tactics, hidden resources. This one's kind of cool. Uh, let's see if we. Here we go. Under at 18th level, dig deeper. You can't you can take a bonus action to allow a creature to regain the use of an origin trait or class feature that would normally be regained by finishing a short rest. You can use this feature twice and you regain any expended uses when you finish a long rest. So basically you allow somebody else to regain something that they normally would regain on a short rest. It's kind of cool. Kind of cool. So anyway, here we go with the let me go back up here. Mm-mm-mm. There we go. Zamara says, I actually had a guy who would offer hirelings so he could put food on the table for his family. The hirelings, his 1d12 plus 6-year-old children. Yeah. Oh, wow. Lizard folk be like that. Oh, you guys are funny. But depending on how realistic you want to, yeah, kids on the battlefield and being hired away as like squires and things like that. I That's a real thing. Not that you want to take too many children into battle, but in real life, was that a real thing? Yeah, it sure was. So we've gotten to the end of the show. I want to thank you, but again, level up advanced fifth edition. We do have the marshal here, the martial archetypes. I think it's kind of cool that there's a non-magical version of this kind of character. There's a lot of narrative elements to this character class. Um, so yeah, and I think you would have to ensure that you place yourself in the proper mindset that this is a character that pretty much fights side by side with other people. This is the bard but hardened and militarized, right? This is the bard in heavy armor, um, without tricks. This is more like, hey, when you're in the range of my commanding presence, I can do these things to help you out, and all that kind of stuff. Like even at the first level, starting at first level, you have commanding presence, which extends from you to a 10-foot radius. Your allies can attack at your command. When you take the attack action, you can forego making one attack to allow a friendly creature within range of your commanding presence to make an attack instead. If the target can see or hear you, it can use its reaction to either cast a cantrip or make one weapon attack. And basically, you can give up your attack to allow somebody else to do something again. And that's kind of cool because you can buff your, talking about the Herald, right? You can buff the Herald and say, hey, go ahead and smite again. And they're like, don't make me do that. I'm telling you to do it. So this is for level up advanced fifth edition. We've got the Marshal, and of course we're going backwards here, but we're going into the Herald, which replaces the Paladin. So kind of cool. Ooh, heraldic order, divine lessons, lessons of war. Those are little doodads that can allow you to customize your character. They still have lay on hands. They still have everything. The biggest change again, biggest change for the Herald again is the fact that uh, the character class has divine divine smite, but it is a class feature. It's you can use spell levels to use it over and over again, but it isn't exactly the same thing. Um, Basically, it allows you to, hey, I can use it once or twice. Cool. I want to keep using it, so then you can start burning spell levels. But whatever. Mike says having a non-strength or dex-based martial is absolutely wild. Tacticians and leaders far more provisions than 5E's offerings, but this book totally encourages. I got to pick it up one day. Yeah, it's kind of weird but kind of cool, and I think the design team, while it was hard to balance a lot of this stuff, right? Because you're going, okay, you want to give people what they want, but sometimes you want to give people what they need, you know. And how often have people been punished for creating, I want to make a fighter but I don't have strength or dex, and everyone looks at you and rolls their eyes, they're like, oh, you're going to pull us down, right? Like that. I mean, that's the thing, you know. You make a character, I want to play a rogue but I don't want to have a high dex, and everyone rolls their eyes because they're like, oh man, you're going to follow us with that, as being a bumbling idiot. So how do you make a character class that's pretty much sounds like you should have the highest strength and dex, you should have high physical stats, but you don't, but you're also on the battlefield, right? Because you got to balance the fact that yes, maybe strength and dex isn't your primary stat, but you still have a heavy shield and heavy armor. So what are you doing out there? And I like your idea, Marin. Like maybe you're just older. Maybe you've been out in the battle and you've been old, or maybe you're very young. That's another thing as well, right? Low strength, low dex, low con. You could be very young, or maybe you're just maybe your character went into battle. You should have gone to wizard school, but you didn't because your sister went into battle and she was lost. Everyone thinks she's dead. You think she's still alive behind enemy lines. You left wizard school, didn't learn much, but hey, you can sure help your allies to go after your family. And guess what? Your brilliance makes you a marshal when you should have went to wizard school, but you didn't. Instead, you use your vast intelligence and knowledge to help out the people on the battlefield. um, Mike says Cyclops was never as deadly as Wolverine or as strong as Jean Grey, but he was the leader of the team because he was competent. Yeah, there's a old um what is the character's name? He was a master of illusions, and Cyclops fought off the rest of the X-Men on his own. They thought he was they thought he was the Phoenix in her evil state, and he fought off like Colossus, Nightcrawler, Wolverine. He could predict their moves and things like that. Yeah, that's why Cyclops was the leader. People mistake leaders for being the most powerful person. That's the funny argument in like the recent Marvel movies. They're like, uh, so and so should be the leader because they're the most powerful. I don't understand why so. It's like that's not, leaders don't have to be the most powerful. Leaders are the person. Leaders are leaders because they know where to put the best people in the best locations. Even if they aren't themselves the smartest person, they're smart enough to know that smart people should be somewhere. Zamar says, yeah, it's being sold at my local game store. I plan on picking it up next month sometime. I'm glad I could help you guys out. By the way, I'm going to say it again. You can go to you can go to A5E.tools and you can, let me see, copy this in here and paste it in here so other people can do it. If you want to take a look at at some of the rules, character classes, features, and things like that, you can go ahead and take a look at it, dive a little bit deeper into the character classes and things like that. So absolutely. So guys, have a good one. I'm going to get out of here a little bit sooner. I'm actually going to stop on an hour. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Yes, we just talked about the Herald and the Marshal today. Didn't get into like the monster book or the trials and treasures, but yeah, whatever. Zamar says the leader is never the most powerful. Yep, that's the lancer. They are never the smartest. That is the egghead. They are usually the tactician or the one who links people together. Yep, yep. Smart leaders aren't are smart enough to know that they're not smart enough to do a thing, but they're smart enough to know that other people are smarter than them and put them in the proper locations. Uh, People mistake that. You know, they're like, "Oh, you got to be the most powerful." I'm like, "Nah, that's very that's a very limited way of thinking, right?" So, yeah, thank you guys. Have a great one, everybody. Mike, thank you very much. Z, always bringing the brilliance as well. Mike Marin as well. Thank you very much for the energy. Guys, thank you so much. Everybody, have a great day. I will see you tomorrow in World Building Wednesday when we talk about we continue our discussion about House of the Dragon and like how we can use the House of the Dragon and in our own world building. Like, what did they do, and then how can we, borrow from it? A little homage, a little inspiration, little tabletop role playing game theft, going on. Anyway, have a great one, you guys as well. Peace.